Amref began in 1957. The medical services in the country for the local populations were not good enough. And 3 doctors, they say, over a beer at the foothills of Kilimanjaro, they were like, how can we take our expertise to the rural communities of Kenya? And since the road networks and infrastructure wasn't good at the time, they thought the easiest way to reach those communities was to fly there. Right then, the idea of the flying doctors was born.
I wanted to go and retire at home in Mandera, and I wanted evacuation. Just in case I get very sick there, what happens to me? Less than 2 months, in fact, after I took the cover, I got an accident, and they met all the cost. When I called and the ambulance came and picked me, my son's comment was very, very interesting. He told me, this came at the right time. You took an insurance just 2 months ago. Already they're here picking you up, they're taken to the hospital. You can imagine how much he felt relieved, because he knew his father is retired. He knew this would have fallen on his shoulder. But Amref took over the thing and shouldered the whole thing. So I think that was great. I wasn't taken in through that front door. They had already called the hospital. I was driven in, and the nurses in the hospital were outside ready, waiting to receive me. And I was stretched straight into a cubicle where a doctor was also waiting. I had not had any problem for treatment, despite having only been a member for 1.5 months before my injury, one. Secondly, when I'm now coming to renew, they did not ask me to pay extra amount. I paid the same amount, and I am on the same cover. The Amref aircraft is well equipped, both in terms of equipment and trained capabilities. And from medical research, we also do know that once you get an accident, what happens to you in the next few minutes, depending on the injury, or few hours, what care you get will determine, one, whether you will live or not. Secondly, whether your injuries will deteriorate or not.
Inchcape Kenya is a subsidiary of Inchcape PLC, which is a London-based company, and we are an automotive distributor and retailer. We normally have community rides, and the riders themselves normally take a Amref Maisha cover. We had someone who had a really nasty accident, but Maisha cover really came through and evacuated her and made sure she was safe. You never know when you need an ambulance, to pick you from the house or something. Let not that, amount be the difference between you being well and something tragic happening. So just get covered.
I was playing soccer with my boss and a few colleagues of mine. I had a very nasty fall and broke my femur. Everyone whom I was with at that time was trying to figure out how they'll carry me and, place me in the vehicle. So that's the time I realized, you guys, stop, please, just stop. In my wallet, there's an Amref card. Call those guys. After a few minutes, I could hear the faint wail of an ambulance. And on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of pain, my pain was at 11. It reduced to 6, 7 just by hearing the wail of an ambulance in the distance. So, there's that satisfaction that help is on the way. Right from the staff of the paramedic staff who were there on site, just giving you assurance that, you're fine. Here to take care of you is already it's medication by itself. So there's a lot of relief. The interesting thing is, even during my recovery period, Amref actually checked up on me. It's not just about, the commercial aspect of it. Getting a customer, yes, we've gotten a customer, he's paid. Has he used our services? Yes, he's used our services. Is he complaining? No, so let's leave it at that. No, they didn't just stop there. They actually made a follow-up, which is remarkable. You're lucky if the county even sends an ambulance. You're lucky if any private company sends you an ambulance. You're even lucky if they come. But with 2,500 minimum, you're guaranteed. I mean, what kind of comfort? What else would you want? That's the easiest and best gift you can give to someone, knowing that in the event I need assistance will be there. It's just a phone call away.
I'm an ultra runner, a trail runner, and a sky runner. Oftentimes, I'm in uncharted territory, be it on the trails, mountains, basically places that would be really hard to manage if anything would happen to you. A friend of mine was like, Amref, cover would be a good idea. I was doing a run in Marsabit, and you run for 50 kilometers. There's no house, there's no shop, there's no human being. So you can imagine what happens if you got injured in such a terrain with such an environment. That's when I took up the cover that time. It's actually beyond value for money. For the amount you're paying and the value you get in the event that you get an emergency, you can't really compare. It directly impacts on your own safety and life. It's not something you can really compromise. So it's worth all the effort. Knowing that you have a backup plan gives you the courage to go an extra mile.
I had a family member who was unwell, and so we had to evacuate. And in the process, that's why I called Maisha. The response was so quick. From the time I picked up the phone and called to the time the ambulance reached where I was, well, I don't know where they were coming from, but it was less than 10 minutes. It was fast. It was my first time to experience them, but definitely after past experiencing other people, they're above the bar. I will not try anybody else.
There's a time we were along Ngong Road and one of my kids had a convulsion. So we were in traffic jam. So I called Amref and I said, yes, I have got a child who's convulsing. So the first question they asked me is, where exactly are you? I said, I'm on Ngong Road. Amref sent me an ambulance. It was just one phone call that I had to make. They stayed with me in Aga Khan until I got to the consultation room. And they called me, I think 2 days later, and asked, so how's your son doing? Did you get the right help? And yeah, anytime you need us, Peggy, call us. For many insurances, you'd expect that once they already know you've got a pre-existing condition, for example, then perhaps they want to discuss a different rate with you. But regardless of the fact that, yes, we've got a pre-existing condition, we've always just paid everything the same for everybody.
Maniago Safaris is a DMC. It's a destination management company that takes care of clients who come into our country. Included in the package is an evacuation insurance. Yeah, for evacuation only. And that makes them very happy. They are comfortable. They know that, if anything happens, they will not be stranded. One time we had a client who fell sick in the Mara, and we called them, and they were very swift in evacuating our client. They flew the client to Wilson Airport, then we took over from there. we decided as a company that we are going to make it part and parcel of our arrangements. And so it's mandatory. It gives peace of mind, first of all to yourself and to the client. Because you know if something happens out there in the bush, that you will not be struggling how to get the client to the city or to a health provider. So it is something that we would definitely recommend.
It's very important for all of us when we work for the organization to remember why they did start it. I remember Michael saying to me, we have to take health care to the people, otherwise they'll die. There's no point us waiting for them to come. It won't happen. So we have to find a way to do that most effectively, and that was basically using the tools of his time, as he said, the radio and the aircraft. The Flying Doctor aircraft always represented bringing something good to those communities, and that's how Amref started. It wasn't a commercial entity at all. It was just really bringing help and support and cherishing people. Michael always had problems getting money to support the evacuations, and so he realized that they need to set up a separate scheme which could in fact be a more commercial enterprise than what they were doing on the clinical and health delivery. So it was foreseen that something of that kind needed to be started well in advance. And that sort of morphed into the actual Maisha scheme when the Flying Doctors became a commercial company. I can't help but think of your father, Salim, actually. I mean, that was the most extraordinary privilege to be able to look after him and bring him back safely to Nairobi from Ethiopia when he was blown up and lost his arm. Every time I've been involved with an evacuation, the people always say, as soon as the service arrives and the staff take over, they just feel a great sense of peace and sort of confidence that everything's going to be okay. It's the speed of reaction that Maisha has to an event, to an occurrence, that I think is very reassuring for people.
The company has expanded since then to do international medical evacuation. We not only do the original bushwork, we'll pick a guy from Masai Mara or from a remote place to Nairobi for treatment. But now we also move patients from Africa to Europe, from West Africa to Nairobi, from South Africa to Nairobi. We are supporting trade, we are supporting investments, we are supporting people go about their daily lives, knowing that, if there's an emergency somewhere, they can call upon us. Maisha is a small part of our business, but we're very passionate about it. It's a growth area, and we are putting a lot of focus to it. The perceptions out there is that our service, air evacuation, is for the rich. So our first biggest idea with introduction of Maisha was just to say that medical evacuation is for all of us. We've grown significantly. We are about 100,000 annual subscribers. We cover about 150,000 tourists per season. Still a very small number that would want to grow. And more importantly, that the revenues that we are generating from Maisha are going back to our mother organization, Amref Health Africa. The key part of our business is that you're dealing with life. So yes, we're in aviation, we're in medicine, but we get called often when things are pretty thick. And therefore that needs a certain type of response and compassion and handling. And we're very specific on who we want to come on board. So these are people who display the kind of behaviors and the competencies that the company needs. The quality of care that we give to our patients has stood out over time. There are many people who do what we do, but I can tell you it's not the same. All ambulances are not the same. Just because there's a van written ambulance doesn't mean, they can offer you good quality care. So we spend a lot of money on training our people, and we are convinced that this is for the long term. So as long as we can deliver high quality service and make sure we are affordable, this company is going to be there in the next 70 years. And the people who come after us, will improve, from where we've left. One of the key areas we're investing in at the moment is aviation. We have expanded into jet fleet ownership. So our largest jet now can move a patient from Nairobi to the southern side of Europe non-stop. We want to be able to go to the US. The demand is there. We are seeing clients coming and saying, want you to move this guy from Mali in West Africa to France, for example. So we're expanding in that space. It's a new frontier for us, and we are very keen so that Africa is covered. One thing we're also doing is working with countries to see how other flying doctors can be set up in other countries. Recently, we had, for example, the Ethiopian government coming to us and saying, we'd want to set up this in Ethiopia. How can we work together? So we are also using our expertise and skill to help other countries develop their own successful, let me call them patient transport companies.
For as low as 3,100 Kenya shillings, get a Maisha cover today. Amref Flying Doctors. We go where no one else goes safely.